Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda, and this week we have a very interesting episode. We actually have a conversation in a way that I have never had on the podcast because today we are speaking to Trenton Hudson. And Trenton is a comedian, a cartoonist, and also the creator of KORMA Coffee. Now, before we had this conversation, I thought it would be interesting to speak to Trenton about his work and being a comedian, primarily because I do know how healing comedy can be, how healing laughter is. In fact, it's something that I turn to in my own work. I love watching stand up just to kind of reset myself if I've had a long day and so on. But Trenton gave a lot of very interesting perspective that I wasn't expecting, and I can't wait for you to hear all about his story. Not just how he got into becoming a cartoonist and a stand-up comedian, but also how he decided to create KORMA Coffee during the pandemic. One of the main things he really emphasizes and will leave you with, which I'm sure will inspire so many of you, is that in life, whatever it is you feel passionate about, whatever it is you feel driven by, you don't have to know how to do it. You just have to know you can. And that is really a message that stood out through all that he shares. So I hope that you enjoy this episode. And more than anything, I hope it inspires you on your path and will inspire you to follow your heart, your dreams, your goals, your inspirations, anything that you may be questioning. I'm sure a lot of what Trenton shares will inspire you. So to learn more about Trenton and his work, you can find him on all social media platforms at Riot Comedy. The links for that are below, of course. And if you would like to try his KORMA coffee, which is actually not caffeinated, it is coffee that is created from date seeds. If you would like to try that out, the links for that are below as well. So I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so today on Reiki Radio, we are here with Trenton Hudson, who is a cartoonist, an entrepreneur, which I can't wait to ask you about this coffee, and also a comedian. So, Trent, first, I want to just thank you for taking the time to come and have a conversation with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure. I was looking forward to partaking and getting to learn more about Reiki while I'm here also.
Yeah, so this is going to be an interesting exchange. Like I was telling you before, I mean, one, I've never spoken to a comedian or had an interview with one. And it'll be interesting to see how this all ties in, like with your story, which is actually where I want to start. Um, I was partially curious about how comedy became so prominent in your life, but would love to hear just a little bit of your background and what drove you to decide to become an entrepreneur and comedian.
As a comedian, it was a lot of just me and my brothers making fun of each other a lot growing up. And, I have four brothers. I'm the middle of five boys, no girls in the family.
Wow.
So, a lot of, and we're very close in age. There's only so there's five of us, 7 years apart. So the youngest two are twins, but still a lot of, very tight bond. But yeah, always giving each other a hard time growing up and making fun of, every situation, even if it's a bad situation, because sometimes, that's how you got to deal with things growing up.
Right.
So that just, it was a lot about that's where it came from. And then me and my brothers wanted to make cartoons together, from that. And that's what it turned into.
Wait a minute. Okay, so right away with that, I'm just thinking of even that whole knowing to make light of or make fun of things that are tough and what's going on. And I just think of how even I am obsessed with stand-up comedy. Like it's literally the only thing I watch on Netflix. And it's just a
Right.
contrast to, just everyday life. Like I need a moment in time just to laugh, no matter what's going on. So like the healing around that, which we'll get back to. But what about this cartoon situation. So you all wanted to make cartoons about what you were experiencing?
Yeah, that's kind of how it started. It started as, we created this show called The Lounge. This is like way back in the day.
Okay.
And so this is like our first YouTube hit, right? And we it was just kind of like small town life. These four guys that worked together in a school, but none of them were teachers or anything. So they just kind of like mess around in the lounge all day. And but it was kind of like the school that we grew up in, you know, the ideas that people were influenced by what we saw, and so we wanted to bring that to life, and it was really funny. And then we actually turned that show um, into a Comedy Central web series for a couple of years, and just went from there. And then a lot of what we've done lately is independent, but we've also worked with we worked with LOL Network on a small project. We did some stuff with Showtime for their podcast segments, and it was it's a lot of that, but it's also a lot of us making our own shows. We created a show called Real Ballers where we made fun of the NBA and just the constant, nonsense that's in the NBA news. So
Yeah.
we did that for a few years, and right now we're doing a show called With All Due Respect. And basically, with all due respect, it makes fun of whatever is happening in reality, whether politics, pop culture, whatever it is.
Yeah, I saw some of that on YouTube. I saw, yeah, some of the clips, the reels of that. And so I'm curious because hearing you say, I mean, like you're kind of just saying, like, oh, yeah, we decided to do this. And then we ended up on
Uh,
Comedy Central. Then we did
no.
Showtime. Like, wait, what? Hold on.
Okay, it
So
seems it
you
seems simple, but
all,
it's not. It's like it was a nonstop grind. So to get the deal with Comedy Central, this is kind of what we did. Like we started on YouTube. We made fun of, even when we were doing the lounge, we made it kind of make fun of what was happening in the news. So season one was El Chapo was in the news. So we made fun of that. And like he breaks out of prison. The guys are, it's summer break from school, and they're on a cross country road trip for some reason. And they pick up El Chapo, he's hitchhiking. So he's in the show. And so we were doing episodes, along with the news cycles, whatever, but we were putting out episodes twice a week. So like animating, writing, recording every single second of every,
wow.
free moment that we had. Um, and yeah, it was a nonstop grind, and we got their attention, and they just kind of like, were like, keep letting us know when you dropping episodes, because we actually reached out to them. It wasn't like they
Right.
stumbled upon it. Like we sought that out. We went and like tried to make it happen. It wasn't like we just kind of were waiting in the wing to.
Well, it's interesting to hear because two things are coming up. One, obviously, this was a passion for you all, but like that combination of like just passion and determination. Because a lot of times we might be passionate about things, but don't really do anything. We might think it's unrealistic. We don't give it the time and the energy. So it's interesting to hear that you all were driven, even though obviously it was something you loved. But just for context, I'm curious, how old were you all around this time when you started focusing so much on this?
Um, so when we really started focusing on it, I was 20 23, I think, when I decided like this is what I'm gonna do, is like make cartoons.
Yeah.
But we didn't put out, so we didn't know how to animate or anything. We had to teach ourselves how to animate. This was like from the time we made the decision, figured out which software to get, learned how to use it. They just offer a ton of tutorials online. And then yeah, so putting in that work. We didn't put out any kind of project for 2 years. Like it was just learning for 2 years and doing, we didn't have a YouTube page, nothing. It was literally just learning how to animate and writing, coming up with the show. And I mean, it wasn't just animating, it was a lot of, concepting where we want the show to go, who we want the
Right.
characters to be, what qualities do we want them to have, what aspects of them are really going to be funny, what aspects of them help tell the story. And but yeah, nothing online for people to watch, no nothing, no like, you see progress in your own work, but
Yeah.
you don't see, like no one's rooting for you. Like you're doing this in the background. It's not like you have content for people to watch. You don't have any kind of fans or anything. Like it was literally a 2 year grind of just work. And I guess it was like a year and a half. Yeah, like a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in that, 20-month range ish. But yeah, just nonstop
I think
working
that's
behind the scenes.
inspiring to hear because I think a lot of times we fall in love with whatever we fall in love with. And a
Hmm.
lot of times it is like just for ourselves, but that ends up being like the best gift that we have to share with everyone else. It's like that thing that you love that really lights you up. And then, of course, it seems like the natural thing would be, well, this is what I'm going to share. But
Hmm.
oftentimes we think, again, like it's not realistic to follow our dreams. So I
Hmm.
do want to talk to you about that as well, since you said, well, not just in this lane, but you are an entrepreneur and that you started your own coffee company made from date seeds.
Hmm.
But I want to back up because you did mention a lot of this started for you and your brothers because you were making fun of, just like laughing through what was tough. So did you grow up in a tough environment? Were there a lot of challenges in your
Um,
childhood?
yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a very conventional growing up. We had, certain things. Like our parents split when we were really young. My two older brothers grew up with our father. Me and my two younger brothers lived with my mother. So we were split like that. We grew up really poor, like really really poor. And but those times like they make you you know who you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
And it's all part of your journey. But also at the same time, even though like we were going through that, and it was tough. Like we had like certain things I'm not gonna get into. It wasn't like super bad, and that's the thing. Like I
Right.
always knew people who had it worse, and
Mhm.
maybe that's not the best way to look at it. But as a kid, that's how I did it. Like I knew
Yeah.
people. Like we were poor. Like we grew up in a really poor town. Like where no one there is like really like they don't even think it's possible to go to you know LA and like make something happen. They think it's like all like a fantasy. And but so you don't really see people who kind of think on that big level, and even not just like in like the sense of moving to Hollywood or doing anything like that, but even in the sense of launching a business that'll make you like a multimillionaire like type of thing.
Right.
That doesn't seem like reality for people, so they don't really think about it. um so I think that's the hardest thing, is to overcome that kind of mindset where you don't see anything around who is similar.
Yeah. But I think that's interesting how comedy can really help us change our perspective around so many things. So, like, while it may have helped you and your brothers kind of cope with and deal with and be able to laugh through whatever it is you may have been encountering, it's making me think of as well. One of the things I love about comedy is it really gets us to look at things differently, or even like the taboo or what people want to avoid or what people don't feel
Absolutely.
comfortable talking about. Comedians crack it open, and now all of a sudden, you don't have to avoid it because you can laugh at some of the ridiculous aspects of pretty much everything. So I wanted
Thank
to ask you about
thank
that too. Like,
what you just said. Like I've been preaching that for years. Like
okay,
comedy, it's like thank you. Like I'm like like appreciate you, because like everything you just said, it's so important. Like we have to have tough conversations as a society. It's like it's imperative, it's a must. Like you see the way society is now, people are hyper emotional, they don't want to talk you know about this and that, and like we hate
right.
as a society being uncomfortable. Like everyone is so easily triggered, so we have to have these conversations somehow. And some people have a responsibility, and stand-up comedians have that responsibility. Everybody doesn't have to do it, but as a genre, you know like if you do your stand-up comedy and yours, if you don't want to touch on sensitive issues, that's your prerogative, that's fine. But as a genre, we have to be allowed to do that.
Yes.
The same thing with musicians also have that responsibility. So there's certain artists who um and even artists who paint, like that's the artist's job, kind of no matter what genre you're in, you have to be allowed that freedom to open discussion, but people have to be open to discussion.
And that's the thing, right? And I remember, especially around like these last few years, especially here in our country, there was a period where you noticed that a lot of comedians, they were being super careful in their
Hmm.
comedy because, the whole cancel culture and all this that happened. It was so disappointing because I was like, man, there's so much. But you're starting to see now people are like, F it, I'm gonna talk about this and we're gonna laugh about this. And so I'm glad that that's coming back around. But even with what you're saying, I think that is one of the beauties of comedy. And I don't know how much people maybe consciously think about it. but it really does invite us to have real honest conversations
Hmm.
and really even consider the way that what's going on in the world is impacting all of us. But I love that in comedy when they bring up like what would be kind of taboo, but again, help to change the perspectives for so many people. So I wanted to talk to you even about that. Now I'm saying it through these last few years where a lot has changed for so many of us, even during when everything was shut down and we had to kind of, we were forced to look at ourselves. Has
Yeah.
comedy in any way been like a medicine for you? Like, would you say that it's a part of what helps to keep you healthy and sane? Like, what's the role it really plays for you?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I actually think about that often, like because I notice that the more it changes your temperament. So the more time you spend, like I like to spend my time doing what I love and writing jokes. So the more time I spend doing that, it's just like it makes my mind, in a more joking mood
Yeah.
whenever I'm outside of my craft. So yeah, it's like it is medicine for me. Absolutely. It
Yeah.
makes me a better person to be around. Like I try to always be good and giving. I'm just more joyful. But whenever you're, writing jokes and just being funny with your brothers and writing jokes together and just being funny and making fun of one another and no one's allowed to get offended, you know.
Yeah. You should put that at the bottom for like everyone who comes to comedy shows, like you're not allowed to be offended. But that makes me curious too, because I think now, again, like it's interesting. You see a lot more people going towards the lane of being entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
especially with what's happened recently. Like some people were forced out of their jobs, or people are just starting to recognize now what matters to them or what
Yeah.
feels good to them, and just really not wanting to be bothered with what's causing a lot of stress and anxiety. Like it's like
Yeah.
this thing of like people feel like they have to return to their joy somehow, some way. But comedy, while we see a lot of comedians that are successful, it's not traditional. It's a like a traditional path. So just want to ask you about that. Like, was there a lot of opposition from people in your life or people discouraging you from this? And what
Never.
propelled you on your, oh, that's good. But what really, so did
Never.
you guys just have this knowing like we can do this?
Um yeah, like I honestly, I don't know. Even though I mentioned earlier that I never saw other people think the same way who wanted to, move up like that. I saw it on the TV. So like I
Yeah.
knew, I don't know why, but I just knew if someone else could do it, I could do it too.
Mm.
Maybe not. It may take me a long time to figure it out, but what like if someone else can do it, I can do it too. Now I do have limitations. I can't be, an NBA player, but if I wanted to be an astrophysicist, I feel like I would be one, which would be really cool. But maybe
Yeah.
I'll do that in my later years to give back more.
Yeah. So, well, okay. Well, I mean, I think that's a great mindset to have, because a lot of people do like that's one of the biggest hurdles is just believing that you can.
Yeah,
Because I mean, if you don't think you can, then you probably won't even really put in the effort.
yeah.
But I think that's a good thing for a lot of people to hear, because there is this change that's happening. It seems like people are just being inspired to go off on a
Hmm.
limb and try something different. But speaking of that, another thing that you have is you have this alternative coffee company.
Hmm.
And I was reading that this was really prompted by you had a heart attack at only 20. So,
Yeah.
what was going on? And then, how did you come up with making coffee out of date seeds?
So with the heart attack, things happen, I guess, right? It's just one of those
Yeah.
freak, one in a million things. And basically, I have two aneurysms in my LAD,
Mm.
and one of those clotted and caused a heart attack. And then
Wow.
15 months later, the other one clotted and caused another heart attack. So, fun fact, the bottom half of my LAD, which is like the heart's in four sections, right? So the
Right.
LAD gives it to the bottom left side, and there's no blood flowing through that. But before I had my first heart attack, my heart was detecting that something was up and the blood flow wasn't as strong as it should be. So it developed arteries around the LAD to get blood to that part of my heart.
Wow.
So I didn't even know that was possible until it happened to me.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
typically, that's the end of your days. If you have a heart attack in your LAD, that's usually it for you. So, I don't have it completely figured out exactly what I'm here, why I'm still here, but I'm figuring it out along the way,
Yeah.
and trying to do, what I love to do while I'm
Yeah.
getting there.
So why did the coffee come into play though? Was it just you wanted and not to have that stimulant?
Yeah, caffeine gives me chest pain. Like I can,
Okay.
you know, go to the gym, exercise all day, play tennis, basketball, whatever. But yeah, coffee constricts your arteries a little bit. So when you have any kind of heart issue, that's not really what you want.
Yeah.
So I uh I quit drinking coffee for a while, and I was kind of looking for an alternative, and I just happened to be a resourceful person. So, growing up poor, I'll do that to you. That's why you teach yourself to animate instead of going to animation school or whatever it is.
Right.
But yeah, I just like to eat dates. So I was throwing away date seeds. I'm just like, I throw away a lot of these. I wonder if I can do anything with them. And you can turn them into coffee. So I tried it in my kitchen a few times, and I'm like, this is actually good. And I wanted to just go to the store and buy it. I was like, I'm tired of making this. I just want, who's got it? No one had it. So I'm like, aha, if I'm looking for this, I know other people must be looking for this too.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people have heart issues. Pregnant women shouldn't have caffeine. So, we offer an alternative that is safe for everybody. Kids can drink it. It's literally, just uh it's like tea, except it's like a caffeine-free tea, but it's like energizing because it's got, a few calories in it, but it's not gonna, give you any kind of buzz
Hmm.
from, it's not a stimulant like that, but it's delicious and it's really good for you. A lot of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, all the works. So,
Yeah, when I saw it, I actually looked up the benefits of dates because I was like, what in the
mm,
heck, dates? This is interesting. So do you add things to it? Like, do you add cream to this or you just drink it as is?
I like to add a little bit of cream, but I don't usually. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of honey if I, got a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's naturally fairly sweet, so you don't need to add a lot to it.
Hmm.
Actually, someone wrote a review on our website a couple of days ago that said this stuff is good as is. Don't need any sweetener or anything. I'm
Wow.
paraphrasing, but something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that is that something you do with your brothers as well, or this is just a solo
No, that, that
venture?
that that was just me. That was honestly something I started during the pandemic.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so yeah, just kind of happened. I had a little extra free time, and I came up with this idea and just launched it as quick as I could. And so here's a fun thing about the coffee thing. So when I launched the cartoons, like I spent a year and a half, almost 2 years, just learning and doing stuff behind the scenes and not making any progress. When I started my date coffee company, I from the time I came up with the idea, from the time I was like, I want to buy this in the store and couldn't find it, and was like, aha, I should do this. From the time I had that idea to the time I had a store, like not a store, but an online store, and you could buy my date coffee, was 3 weeks.
Wow.
And that's from like touring a couple date farms, talking to people, seeing where I'm gonna get my date seeds from. I designed some like simple packaging. Um, got like 50 I got like 50 of those little white, simple coffee bags that you
Yeah.
can just seal with the heat press. I got them on Amazon. That was like my first round of coffee. But I knew that people wanted it then, so I just, turned it into, kept, you know,
Yeah.
flipping that, and then had really nice bags. And now I have all my coffee made by somebody else. They roast it, grind it, bag it up, they store it in the warehouse, they ship it out when someone buys it. I don't have to do
I
any of
mean,
that
listening to you, Trent,
anymore. But
well,
that
Trenton,
took years to
sorry.
make happen. That took years to make happen.
Yeah, but still, regardless, I mean, listening to you, like every facet of your journey, it's really like no one listening to this is like anything that you feel called to do, you should have no excuse. I mean, you were self-taught, self-driven. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, just the
That, that's
drive,
that's the thing.
but
You have to get
figuring it
you have
out.
to get it right up here, and you have to.
Right.
It's hard to figure out. Like honestly, growing up poor was like a good thing for me. But you also have to, whenever you want to do something, you have to network with people. You have to get advice from people. You have to go into it knowing I don't have a clue what I'm doing, and
Right.
nobody does. I didn't know what I was doing when I did any of these things. Like I literally started from zero and knew nothing. I didn't know how to animate. I didn't know anything about coffee when I started selling coffee. Literally, I didn't know the difference between a latte and like a cappuccino, none of that stuff. I didn't know anything.
That is
Like
amazing.
you have to just, figure out, it's hard to figure out how you should go about it. And that's why you have to I got a lot of good advice from people who knew more than I did. That's the
Yeah.
thing. You got to be humble enough to know that, like, you got to get your mind in the set that, like, I can do anything. Like, I can be whatever it is, and I can make anything happen. But you also have to know that I don't know how to get there. I just know I can. So
Yes.
that's what it
I
is.
love that. No, I mean, it's inspiring to hear it. I know for me, because I always have like projects and ideas, although I do have good follow through. I
Mhm.
have good follow through. But I know, like, I'm even thinking of one friend in particular. I'm gonna make her listen to this 10 times because I'm like, girl, listen to this. Seriously, the proof is in the pudding. But I want to ask you about the name of the company too. Is there a meaning behind the name? Is it KORMA?
KORMA?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, KORMA is Farsi for date. Yeah.
Oh, are you Persian?
I'm not.
Oh.
I thought it sounded cool, and date coffee is popular over there.
Oh,
So,
oh, okay.
but I'm gonna be
Okay.
real. So I changed the spelling a little bit. So I simplified it a little bit, because like the original spellings, it's KOOHRMA, but I just
Uh,
simplified it to KORMA. I
same
gotta sell it
sound.
to white people, you know.
Yeah, no, I get
I'm
it.
white, by
I
the
get
way,
it.
so I'm white, so
Okay.
I'm not.
Like, oh, it's Farsi. That's interesting. Well, I want to ask you something else too,
Hmm.
because even though listening to you again in that drive, that determination, figuring it out, whatever it is you want to do, just figure it out. But it seems like, that may be a little more comfortable behind the scenes, right? Like you're on the
Hmm.
computer figuring things out, and
Hmm.
even with networking for the coffee, it's more
Hmm.
personalized. But what was it like for you, and how did you even transition into going on the stage? Because that seems like that would be like a
Hmm.
whole nother beast.
It is a whole nother beast.
Hmm.
But I always kind of liked performing,
Okay.
so it's not as hard for me as it is for some people. Now it's also harder for me than it is for other people. But you have to enjoy being on the stage. You have to enjoy performing. If you don't enjoy performing, then stand-up comedy is, you have to enjoy the pressure of performing live. Um, and the pressure of performing live is great. There's honestly nothing like
Yeah.
it. There's nothing like doing a stand-up comedy set and just having people cheer and getting off stage and everyone loved your set. There's nothing like it, because comedians, it's it's the hardest job in the world, is to like make people laugh without
Right.
a dialogue or conversation. It's just you and a microphone, and they just have to sit and listen to you, and it's it's fun.
Yeah.
But also, like, you have to make them laugh, otherwise, the energy in the room changes, and so you're responsible for all that. Like, you don't want to mess up there.
Yeah, yeah. So because of that, I'm imagining like you have to be really good at reading a room too. Like, do you ever have to
Yeah.
go off script or say you have like one set of jokes, you think you're going one direction, but then because of the audience, do you have to kind of
Oh
pivot?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and a lot of times it's not even like about offending people. It's just certain jokes don't hit with certain
Right.
demographics and certain people, Like, I'm not if I'm gonna do a set of jokes, like, LA is different than doing jokes in Vegas. I don't know, maybe, probably not.
Right.
But a place like, okay, so some of these people that I do comedy with every now and again, they do comedy in LA, but they also do comedy in Tempe, Arizona. And the Tempe, Arizona crowd is obviously very different from an LA crowd.
Right.
So that's, you're not going to do the same set. And like in LA, you can say anything, like it's pretty raunchy for the most part. I mean, there's certain topics you can't like touch on because people are like, but
Yeah, yeah, of
then
course.
they won't laugh. But, you can pretty well hit a pretty wide range of things and get pretty dark. You can get pretty dark in LA humor, but certain places, they don't want like the super dark humor. They want a little more family friendly, which is fine. But you want to make people laugh. That's your job. You're not there to like do your thing. You got to kind of know what you're going into, I think.
But how did that change? So did you have to, was that something you also had to like learn or expand your craft with that? Because I'm sure like joking with your brothers when you were younger
Mm,
on stage
yeah.
and how that translates, I mean, maybe have to have more storytelling. Like, how did you learn how to then alter the craft of storytelling comedy, all of
Trial and
that.
error.
Oh,
Trial and error.
oh,
That's the thing. Always. You just go up there and sometimes like your sets don't hit as well. And you just have to ask yourself, what did I do that was so bad this time that like I only got, this laugh didn't hit the way I thought it would. And sometimes I thought they were going to laugh at this, but they didn't. But then, you go and adjust and you fix it. And then sometimes you're like, oh, sometimes you have really good sets. And you're like, oh, I didn't even expect them to laugh at that part. Things are going really
right.
good. You just got them and they laugh at everything because you're delivering so well. But yeah, but you gotta read that room and make everything land. It's
Well,
hard,
it's
but
funny
it's
you
fun.
say you were talking, well, we like chatted for a minute before we started recording, and you were saying how Reiki keeps popping up like
Mm,
randomly in your sphere. And this is reminding me in some way of energy work, in that you just start to become very aware of energy. So whether
mm-hmm,
it's your own energy or the energy of other people, and it sounds like with what you do, you have to hone that maybe for a different reason and in a different
mm-hmm,
way, but it's still this awareness of the energy of the room, the energy of
mm-hmm,
people, and how I take literally the energy of my environment and lift it through laughter, right? So, just a little side note for your pocket, you are doing energy work in a way, Trenton. I mean, that's,
indeed.
yeah, I mean, it's just shifting
Hmm.
the frequency, the
Yeah.
feeling of the room.
I'll say another good thing whenever you can be funny in moments is, sometimes you're in situations where you're with friends or with family and something, you have a tense moment, or someone else, a couple people over here have a tense moment and it kind of disrupts the energy. You're at a family reunion or like at Christmas or whatever it is. But if you're funny, or you can be funny in that moment anyway, whenever you sense that the energy, because everyone feels that energy is so bad,
Right,
but you can bring that energy up, and it's much easier to do with humor versus trying to make people talk it out when they don't want to talk it out, or
yeah.
because sometimes we're not emotionally ready to go there, so we can laugh right now and we'll talk about this later whenever we've had a moment to cool down and everyone eat and be happy or whatever it is that we're doing. But yeah, humor is great for that. And I think honestly, me and my brothers, had to kind of learn that as kids growing up. And you still kind of carry it with you as you get older. You have to be, but you also have to be bold enough to say something in those moments, because you could also, say something that, not everyone's gonna like, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
someone's gotta go there.
Right. Right. And it's just like even having that audacity. But I'm curious now too, thinking about it, because we mentioned how in a lot of ways comedy can help other people have a change in perspective. But do you ever approach something like, say it is something political or something that's on the news, right? And you may think you have an idea about it, but then once you start hitting it from the angle of comedy and you start writing about it, has it even helped you to change in some ways? Or like, has your own comedy helped you kind of grow in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way?
I think absolutely. I think especially with, so the show we're doing, With All Due Respect, right? We try to hit everybody. Like we try to put no political bias in it. Now we will make fun of people really hardcore. So if we're making fun of a figure who leans to the right, and the way the left attacks him is like really ugly, like we'll do that and attack him the same way. But we'll also do the
Right.
same thing to the person on the left who gets attacked really ugly by the right. Like we attack everyone, but we don't do it ugly. We make it funny. But
Right.
but it's a lot of just making fun of what's going on in real life. We try not to make it too like attacking. We just want to kind of bring jokes. We don't really try to put any kind of political agenda in it. And I think it's really helped me because that's the way I try to see everything.
Yeah.
And I think especially in America, something interesting is that they tell us there's three sides to every story, right? There's like this
Mhm.
side, that side, and the truth.
Right.
But they only give us two sides. They only give us this side and that side.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
so we're just gonna make fun of it all.
Yeah, no, I mean it's really interesting. I told you I saw some of the clips on your YouTube channel. The first one that I saw was actually the most recent, and it
Mhm.
had Trump, Biden, and Madonna. That's all I'll say. And if anyone wants to see, they
Yeah,
can go and watch
that's
that.
that's a
And
good
I was like,
one. That's a good
what? And I laughed and I
one.
was like, God, but it was so quick, right? It can just
Yeah.
be like a comedy in a way I think too is like a great interrupter. I often think of love in that way, right? Like I think of
Hmm.
love, just the energy of it in of itself can be a great interrupter. Say like you're having a hard day, but then you get to hug the person that you know cares for you. So it's like that feeling just interrupts whatever it is that, you know, was challenging for us. But that's
Hmm.
what comedy does in a great way too. It is such a
Hmm.
great interrupter. And I
Hmm.
think yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of personally how, again, I told you like a
Yeah.
lot of times that's how I end my day. Like
Yeah.
Friday night, I'm on Netflix
Yeah.
hoping that there's some new comedy
Hmm.
on
I need a
just to
laugh.
create a shift. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really important. But I wanted to ask you about that from your perspective as well, because you mentioned that it does feel good when you're on stage and the response, if
Hmm.
you're killing it, you did a good job, and the response you get back. But do you ever go into it knowing, or have you even gotten feedback for people like the difference that it made just being able to be with you for a short period of time and just laugh?
I have never got that personally at a show. I've never headlined a show, so I've never been that guy. I don't do
Yeah,
stand up as much as I do. Um, I make a lot of cartoons,
yeah,
and so, but we've had ton of fans reach out, direct message us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything, and say thank you for making the cartoons that you make. Like it's a huge part of my week. I look forward to this coming out every whatever, whenever we're dropping episodes.
right.
And we've got some like extremely touching, heartfelt messages that's like just like almost make you cry. It's like like people like the impact that you can have just by like bringing joy to somebody like that, and especially whenever you don't, you know, try to put your idea on them, and you know about like making sure you only show this way, but just making fun of everyone from all angles. And really, I think that's a thing that you alluded to earlier, is that like showing perspective on things, and just giving more of that instead of you know think about it just this way, but think about it, think about it a few ways and make fun of it.
Yeah, yeah. You know what's so funny is because I told you before we had this conversation, this is our first time meeting for anyone listening. And I thought like, man, this is going to be a really interesting conversation because I've never had, you know, an interview with, you know, everything tends to be very focused
Hmm.
specifically in the realm of healing. But again, reading your bio and looking at your work and everything that you've done, I was like, well, I mean, comedy is very healing for me. I mean, it's definitely one of the things in my healing toolbox. But it's been interesting listening to you with all of these different perspectives. I mean, like, one, definitely having that passion married with our
Hmm.
determination, and you just woven all throughout your story is like you can do anything you want to do, which
Hmm.
in of itself I think is powerfully healing for people, because a lot of times we hold ourselves back and we're in some misery because we don't believe we can go after the things we want to go after.
Hmm.
But you really also I remember reading something about you, maybe it's something you posted, I don't know, but it was this whole idea of like creating something from nothing.
Hmm.
And it seems like you keep doing this again and again. Technically everything comes from nothing, right? To some
Yeah.
degree. But I just want to know, like, now that you have done these things, like, what else? Is there something, is it always stirring in you? Okay, like, well, now my next thing is this, and now I want to go in this direction. Or are you just refining what already is?
A lot of it is refining what already is, and I think the next thing that I want to do is an animated movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we're tossing around ideas. We've tossed around a lot of ideas, but haven't taken the major steps to make them happen. We've been focusing more on the shows and whatnot. But yeah, that's something that is probably not probably definitely next, as far as the next major goal. So like
Yeah.
we had the we've done a lot of shows, we've worked with a lot of cool companies, we've done some pretty cool things. I've started a coffee company. I'd never even planned on doing that. It was like a pandemic thing. And
Yeah.
you know what I'll say is, I wanted to say too, is like you mentioned like being healing, and had people reach out to me about the comedy, and whatnot. But I've got the very most amazing heartfelt messages from the people who have bought the coffee.
Wow.
I've got messages from people saying like, thank you so much for making this. It's changed my life. Like, this is exactly what I wanted, something that's good and delicious and good for me. And I can't have coffee because I suffer from XXX, whatever it is. And I got an email recently from someone who reached out saying uh, they started getting this for their dad. Her dad was older and he's going through health issues. He can't have coffee anymore. And yeah, he was like thrilled to have it. And like she was so happy to have gotten it for him. And it was just like a really, really beautiful message. So those were things that like never even planned on that happening. I just wanted to like make a coffee alternative for people who were like me and wanted something else, who couldn't really, didn't like the caffeine.
Right.
But to get that kind of love back is like, that makes you feel good and want to keep doing it too. And that's like a really, really big part of, what also you mentioned, like comedy keeps you going. Getting that like good feedback for the good things that you do, like will really, really boost you and help like be medicine.
Yeah, no, I bet. And that's one of the things too. I mean, definitely through your story, I mean, both lanes of what you do, it really puts such a emphasis on like we all have something to give,
Hmm.
and we all have something to contribute. And a lot of times, again, like if it's, I mean, because that's not necessarily something that was like trendy or popular. And again, even with like comedy, that can't be the easiest path to craft and actually
Hmm.
get it to become a career, something
Hmm.
that's sustainable. But to have whatever it is that you have trying within you that just says like, no, I like this thing, so I'm going to keep going, I'm going to figure it out, and then to actually then share it and it be a benefit to all. I think it is a good reminder for everyone that whatever is on your heart, it may not make sense to you, but
Hmm.
if you love it, do something about it. I mean, you never
Hmm.
know what will come with it and who will resonate with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think, you just, like I said earlier, I think if I could just sum everything up in one like simple, you don't have to know how to do it. You just have to know that you can. That's all that
Right.
matters. Like I never knew how to do any of these things. I just
Yeah.
you just figure it out as you go, and then you realize this is what everyone's doing. We're all just figuring it out as we go.
Yeah. But I like that overlay to apply that to literally everything, like even in
Hmm.
the realm that I work in, that is a great mantra to have. Like I don't know
Hmm.
how have to know how to do it. Just know that I can. And it's actually something I always tell people, like Google is your friend. Like in today's
Hmm.
age, like everything is, you can figure it out somehow, some
Yeah.
way. But I also love that you said, network and talk to people who know more than you
Hmm.
know. I'm really thankful that we did have this conversation. I was kind of like, this will be interesting. Don't know what direction it's gonna go, but
Hmm.
I'm really glad. It's been nice meeting you, Trenton, but more so, I love all the wisdom woven through your story and what it is that you do. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. The pleasure was truly mine. I really enjoyed. I'm gonna have to listen to more of your podcast because I got a chance to listen to a few episodes before I joined it. It's very interesting stuff. And I was telling you before the podcast that like Ricky just keeps coming across timelines in my
Yeah.
life. Not even like my scrolling timeline, but just other. It's been coming
Oh
across
my,
it. So.
it finds you. It's one of those
Hmm.
things. Everyone, when you talk to them, like, how did this come on your radar? And it's like, ugh,
Hmm.
but it literally it finds you somehow. But I'm just
Hmm.
down in San Diego, so anytime
Oh,
you have
nice.
questions, you want to
Cool.
know, whatever, I am here for you. Would love to share Reiki with you as well.
Appreciate you. And if you want to laugh,
Yeah.
with all due respect, go to the playlist on YouTube on our page, Riot Comedy. Then you can watch the full episode of that one with Trump and Biden and Madonna. You can see the full version of it.
Okay.
It's not long.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
didn't
four.
know
It's like a minute long, but that's quicker than the little short you saw.
Well, I'm gonna be going back and watching so much of
It's
it. Are
good
you
stuff.
kidding me? And that's what I wanted to let everyone know too. So the KORMA coffee, we can put the link for that down in the show description, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But then also for your comedy, we can go to YouTube at Riot Comedy, and you have all of the videos there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do shows, or when you are gonna do things that are live, do you post that anywhere? How can we find out?
Yeah, usually best place is our Riot Comedy Instagram. That's where we are the most active. Any new episodes are always on the YouTube, but
Okay.
any kind of updates, our Instagram. We're semi-active on Twitter. We're trying to be better about it, but we're the most active on Instagram, so and TikTok.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
And on
updates are
all
on
of the
Instagram.
platforms, is it at Riot Comedy on all
Riot
of the
Comedy on
platforms?
every platform. Yeah, but yeah, Instagram is like if you want to be the most up to date on things, Instagram is usually the best.
Okay. So we're
Mhm.
going to go to at Riot Comedy, check out the comedy, the work of the Hudson Brothers. And again, it was a pleasure meeting you, Trenton.
Nah, thank
And
you
for
for having
everyone
me.
else, go down in the show notes, get your KORMA coffee, and then go
Appreciate you.
have a laugh. Yeah, my love. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you for joining me
Likewise,
today.
my pleasure. Appreciate you.
Okay, beautiful alchemist. Thank you so much again to Trenton Hudson for joining us today on the podcast. And you can check out Trenton's work along with his brothers, known as the Hudson Brothers. Their comedy, them being cartoonists, there's a lot that you can watch on their YouTube channel at Riot Comedy. You can also follow them on social media, including Instagram at Riot Comedy. So I just want to thank Trenton again for joining us today. That was very, very inspiring. Don't forget again, if there's anything on your heart, anything you feel passionate about, just marry it with your determination. Be willing to network and speak with others that may have more resources or information to support you. Remember that you can self teach yourself a lot as well. And the beautiful message that he left us all with, you don't have to know how, you just have to know you can. And if you would like the convenience of watching Reiki Radio, the interviews on your phone, as well as accessing some more tools of energetic alchemy, you can download my app, The Energetic Alchemist. Go to the Apple App Store, or if you have an Android, go to the Google Play Store and download The Energetic Alchemist. Now we have an app. So it's just a convenient way of sharing with you and us being together as community. And don't forget, once you have the app, you also have the option for joining me on Tuesdays to discuss the podcast, the most recent episodes, but even just talking about your practice as it relates to Reiki, meditation, or whatever it is that you practice. So I hope to see you all there for those live discussions. You will get more information on the app. Thank you again to Trent, and remember to always journey in love.